Chapter 2090 One Consumables. Today, Deng Shintong has completely joined Zhang Yi's camp. Coupled with Zhang Yi's investment in Deng's technology, the relationship between the two families is extremely close. Of course, Zhao Mu had to consider obtaining a large amount of resources from the Deng family in preparation for war. Mr. Zhang Yi, I have heard from Shintong about your situation. Deng Yuanbo pointed at Deng Shintong and said, "This kid is so tight-lipped. He didn't tell me anything else. He just said that you had some conflicts with the Wulwan Empire, and they were so angry that they thought of this way to retaliate against you. In fact, Zhang Yi doesn't mind letting others know about the mission of sealing Mammon. After all, the major forces in the world are involved." What Deng Yuanbo meant was that Zhang Yi should rest assured about Deng Shintong and that he would not be a traitor. Zhang Yi did not keep the secret and asked, "If I want to go to war with the Wulwan Empire, not a full-scale war, but just a revengeful action, can the Deng family support me?" The smile on Deng Yuanbo's face deepened. This is not a joke. The strength of the Wulwan Empire is obvious to all. If they mobilize all their forces, they can even destroy the entire Huashu kingdom. Of course, this happened more than half a year ago. But now, even if the strength of Huashu Kingdom has improved, it is probably still difficult to compete with the Wulwan Empire. In terms of top powerhouses, technological levels, and the number of extraordinary people, we are all lagging behind. Wanting to start a war does make people feel that Zhang Yi is overthinking it. However, Deng Yuanbo only thought about it for a moment, and then said sincerely, "We now fully trust Mr. Zhang Yi's ability. As long as you want to do something, we will definitely help you. It is important to take sides. The more critical the moment, the greater the reward will be if you stand on the right side." Moreover, Deng Yuanbo knew Zhang Yi's character. He was not a madman who would use his weakness to defeat the strong because of a momentary impulse. Zhang Yi will definitely take action only when he is fully prepared. Zhang Yi smiled faintly. Deng Yuanbo's statement made him very satisfied. But what kind of help can the Deng family give him? Zhang Yi was very curious. He had the people and weapons he needed, so there was really not much he lacked. "What can the Deng family do to help me?" Zhang Yi asked directly. Deng Shintong's eyes flashed with a shrewd look, as if to say, "What? You look down on our Deng family? Boy, I'm going to open your eyes." "Haha, Mr. Zhang Yi is really outspoken. Then I won't play dumb with you. We at Deng's Technology have been studying mutants for the past few years, collecting data on various mutations. Of course, it was also thanks to you that you led my nephew through battles across the country, and we were able to obtain a lot of important intelligence. Now, our research has made great progress. Please come and take a look." Deng Yuanbo stretched out his hand and motioned Zhang Yi to go to the back of Deng Garden. Deng Shintong was also curious. "Uncle, do you have something new?" The curiosity on his face didn't seem fake. It seemed that he hadn't even been informed of this new research. Deng Yuanbo still had a mysterious smile on his face, but he did not answer his question directly. Research is very time-consuming. He led the two people all the way back until they arrived at his study. Controlled by smart devices, the study quickly changed its appearance. Like building blocks, the floor and walls were reassembled, and then an elevator was revealed under the 3 thick layers of floor. "This is the most confidential secret of Deng's technology. I guarantee that you will be interested." He spoke to Zhang Yi mysteriously, his eyes full of confidence. "Oh." Zhang Yi became curious. At this point, there aren't many things that interest him. Deng Yuanbo didn't say much, and just invited them to get in the elevator. The elevator fell all the way down, and stopped only when it reached more than 500 meters underground. At this location, even if the death of love were to explode on the surface, it would not have much impact. Building an experimental base 500 meters underground would require a lot of time, materials, and personnel. This base must not have been built after the end of the world, and it must have existed for a long time. The 3 of them came to the underground base, which was filled with soft white light and did not have any eerie feeling. But for some reason, Zhang Yi felt a chilly aura. He was very familiar with this aura. It is a pheromone released when a member of the same species dies, warning the same species to stay away from the area. This feeling can be felt on the battlefield and on the land where many people are buried. Zhang Yi frowned slightly. People had died in this place, and many people. Deng Yuanbo walked in front and led the way. As he walked, he said calmly, "What you're about to see may make you feel physically uncomfortable, but I think you, who have experienced many battles, will not find it too difficult to accept. After all, behind the light in this world, there are always some dark things. And darkness carries the light. Just like black coal can be ignited and then bring light and warmth. Nobel invented dynamite, which killed countless people, but also saved more people." Deng Yuanbo spoke slowly, which made Zhang Yi feel a strange feeling in his heart. "What do you want to say?" Zhang Yi asked. "Don't worry, you'll see it soon." Deng Yuanbo still had a smile on his face, and then they walked through the laboratories one by one. Along the way, Zhang Yi saw many experimenters in white coats fiddling with test tubes and beakers. He also saw some larger glass containers containing strange flesh. When he looked closely, he vaguely discovered that they were baby embryos. The strange feeling in my heart became stronger. Finally, Deng Yuanbo led them to stop in front of the glass wall of a laboratory. The glass was pitch black, and I couldn't see clearly what was inside. Deng Yuanbo waited until Zhang Yi approached before he disabled the light isolating function. In an instant, the bright lights made everything behind the glass wall appear before Zhang Yi's eyes. An extremely huge laboratory is like a huge farm. However, what are kept inside are not animals, but countless huge glass containers. In those containers, there were some tiny-looking baby embryos sleeping. It's hard to count how many there are, but at a glance, there's no end in sight. What are these? Are these inhumans that you have cultivated through genetic engineering? Zhang Yi asked Deng Yuanbo curiously. Deng Yuanbo shook his head and said slowly, "These are all consumables." "Supplies?" Zhang Yi was a little surprised. "These are just embryos. How can they become consumables?" "Mr. Deng, I don't quite understand what you're saying." Chapter 2092. Method to Defeat Hades. Deng Yuanbo chuckled. He looked at Zhang Yi and said calmly, "The important information you brought back from Chernobyl has been of great help to us. It also makes us understand what the true source of the Inhuman's abilities is. It's a person's longing, isn't it?" Zhang Yi did tell Deng Shintong this information. These are not secrets to many underground civilizations. Even the top leaders of the Junjing Church, Shengjing District, and Columbia know or have a rough idea of these secrets. Deng Yuanbo nodded. The essence of superpowers comes from the spiritual power of ether, so when a large number of creatures die, a large amount of spiritual power will be generated and scattered in the world. It is absorbed by the remaining people and causes mutations. I believe that the Lord of Ether will periodically clean up the creatures in this world. Because as long as they continue to multiply indefinitely, they will continue to draw spiritual power from ether. Just imagine that there is no war in this vast universe. Even though people will experience birth, aging, illness, and death, once technology develops and humans exploit the resources of the universe, there will be no shortage of resources that will prevent them from being unable to feed a large number of humans. Then the number of human beings may reach hundreds of billions, or even infinite. Zhang Yi nodded. There is indeed nothing wrong with what you said. But what does this have to do with what you did? Pointing to the terrifying number of embryos. Do you want to breed a large population to provide psychic energy? Deng Yuanbo smiled and said with his hands behind his back, "We have conducted a sophisticated experiment based on the information you provided. The embryo begins to develop a faint consciousness after 3 months. It is from this time that spiritual power will appear in his body. And there is one thing, Mr. Zhang Yi, you may not know. That is, the spiritual power of babies is actually stronger than that of adults." At this point, Zhang Yi finally understood what Deng Yuanbo was doing. Are you taking advantage of this world? By artificially creating embryos and nurturing them to grow to 3 months old, they can gain spiritual power. And then extract? Zhang Yi's mind was a little complicated. He looked at the embryos that had just taken shape, and his heart was shocked beyond words. But at this moment, he didn't know what to say. This matter has already involved the level of human relations and morality. Deng Yuanbo said, I know that this may be difficult for you to accept for a while, but I guarantee you, we're not the first to do this. This is like the death of love. Using such simple physics principles, you can get such huge destructive power. We regularly collect reproductive cells from the aliens in the city and then select the best cells after screening and cultivation. We then carry out the fertilization process and cultivate them into embryos. In this way, during the formation process of these embryos, it is possible that congenital mutations will occur due to the genes of the father and mother. Then the spiritual content of this embryo will be higher. Deng Yuanbo adjusted his reading glasses, put his hands behind his back, and said, This is science. It is also the fastest way to save humanity and allow us to quickly gain power in the end times. This planet is 4.6 billion years old. You'll never believe why I moved to Pune. My life in emojis, airplane, person surfing, sushi, man mountain biking. It contains a vast amount of resources, but during these 4.6 billion years, countless advanced life forms have been born. Each generation of races will try their best to plunder all valuable materials before the end of the world. By the time of our generation, the technological civilization was much more backward than other races, and the resources left to us were all those they didn't want. Deng Yuanbo raised a finger. But the Creator is fair. We still have a way to choose. Zhang Yi remained silent. He had no idea what to say now. Even Deng Shintong was standing aside, his face filled with shock and a look of struggle. Deng Yuanbo was right. This kind of experiment could indeed gain a large amount of spiritual power in a short period of time. But it always makes people feel that it violates human ethics. Inside the shadows, the others followed, staring in amazement at the huge laboratory in front of them. Zhou Ke was fine. As a doctor, she had seen too many big scenes. As for Deng Yuanbo's theory, she put her chin on one hand and analyzed it from a doctor's perspective. It is indeed difficult for ordinary people to understand the difference between human ethics and practicality. But from a medical perspective, it is a good method. Yang Xia had already run to the side and started retching violently. She wiped her mouth and said palely, But this behavior looks so disgusting. Zhou Ke said, In the process of medical experiments, there are many things that are more difficult to accept than this. The others looked at each other, not knowing what to say. Only Yang Xinxin looked excited. Yes, why didn't I think of this method earlier? Genius. This is truly a genius experimental idea. It's not because she couldn't think of it, but because the companions around Zhang Yi were all high-level extraordinary people. This method is only suitable for general cultivation of a large number of aliens, but it has little effect on high-level aliens. To put it simply, this is like 9 years of compulsory education. However, Zhang Yi and his colleagues are all doctoral students or professors, so they don't need it. But the development of this technology can comprehensively enhance the national strength of the entire Jiangnan region. No, the entire Huashu country. The conflict between practical interests and moral ethics puts people in a struggle. This struggle is not limited to pragmatists like Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin. Zhang Yi just asked Deng Yuanbo a question. Will they feel pain when they die? Deng Yuanbo replied, We will use the most gentle method to ensure that they will not suffer any pain. And from a medical point of view, the senses of a 3-month-old embryo are not yet fully developed. In the field of human definition, they are not considered human beings in the legal sense. Deng Yuanbo said a lot, all of which were actually meant to dispel Zhang Yi's inner obstacles. He spread his hands and said, Behind the glamorous appearance, there must be something shady to maintain it. Our technology can provide Huashu Nation with a huge amount of spiritual power. You should understand how precious it is. Zhang Yi took a deep breath and said, Let's get out of here first. Looking at the huge number of embryo culture vessels, he really couldn't bear it. But at this moment, he heard Yang Xinxin's slightly excited voice. Brother, I found a way to defeat the gatekeeper of Hades. Zhang Yi was stunned for a moment. What's wrong? Xin, do you have a new idea? Dear viewers, thanks for staying with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.